Hey guys, Tony here. Today I will be using the Bernstein's model to describe a beginner's progression in Tetris Battle. Tetris Battle is a variation of the classic game of Tetris. The goal of the game is to manipulate the pieces to form horizontal lines with no gaps. The player attempts to clear the most amount of lines possible within a 2-minute duration. The participant I will be using for this case study is a 22-year-old female who is a beginner. The beginner is currently in the first stage of the Bernstein model, where they run into the initial problem of being overwhelmed by all the possible degrees of freedom. They must determine where to position the blocks, turning and maneuvering the blocks appropriately, and fitting the blocks together. During this stage, the beginner will develop an initial strategy by freezing degrees of freedom. They will form a stack of blocks while leaving one column width open. They will use straight blocks to clear the lines. This reduces non-essential movements and simplifies control for the beginner. The beginner performed 30 trials, and the amount of lines cleared was the outcome measure. They showed a linear progression of improvement. In addition, they had other effects such as improved consistency of line formation and decreased errors made within the games. This shows evidence of learning in the beginner. According to the Bernstein's model, what distinguishes an expert from a novice is that an expert has control of multiple degrees of freedom. In Tetris Battle, an expert will use these multiple degrees of freedom to implement the 4 wide strategy. By forming a stack of blocks while leaving 4 columns open as opposed to one, the expert is able to form lines with optimal efficiency and effectiveness. I was interested in investigating whether the beginner can use this more optimal 4 wide strategy to improve their performance in-game. So I had the beginner watch a tutorial video of an expert explaining and demonstrating the 4 wide strategy and measured the effects on performance. The expert's demonstration ended up negatively impacting the novice's performance. The amount of lines she was able to form after the demonstration, based off a 5 trial average, was significantly lower than the amount of lines she was able to form before the demonstration. One explanation to this decreased performance is that the demonstration provided a strategy to the beginner that was too complicated. The strategy increases the number of choices, which demonstrates Hicks' law, and the complexity of choices the beginner must make. This decreases her reaction time overall and decreases her performance. Specificity of practice indicates what you learn depends largely on what you practice. Because the beginner has not been able to sufficiently practice this new strategy, she was not able to perform well using it. The action-effect hypothesis proposes benefit on performance by focusing attention on the intended outcome of the movement rather than the movement itself. By introducing this strategy to the novice, they began to focus extensively on the movements themselves rather than the outcome of movements by forming as many lines as possible, and this led to a decrease in their performance. So the take-home messages of this case study is we should consider the current skill level of a person and tailor the practice, demonstrations, and feedback to that individual. Novices benefit from simplifying practice to ensure they have some degrees of success. We should not attempt to skip stages of learning, as each stage is crucial to learning.